absurdity is something that I think most people understand, but sometimes when you are reading or watching something, when it clicks, and sometimes it just takes you out of whatever story you are reading. But in some certain special cases, that absurdity is what draws you into the story. And if you've read the title, you know what I'm going to be talking about, and that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now then, it is not going to be just about part 1, or nay, not even just about part 2, or the very good part 3, or the even better part 4, or the best part so far that I've read, part 5. No, it is going to be about all of it. It's going to be like an overview of all 5 parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. That is mostly because I want to talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because I haven't really had too many opportunities to talk about it besides when I go and do my manga reading logs and the like of that. But I wanted to talk about it as a whole now that I've gotten up to part 5 of the story, and I feel like dang it, I forget how to pronounce his name. Koshi Araki is the mangaka. I feel like by part 5, he has definitely hit his stride of balancing good story as well as the absurdity of it all. So, let's get into it. Like I said, this is not going to be all, great detail. I will probably do videos on the different parts, especially now that I have read 4 of them and want to just give my overview of the entire series as a whole. So, one, like I said, absurdity is something that when you read in or view in a series, movie, video games, or what have you, can take you out of it. But I feel like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has done the incredible thing about having absurdity take you in. It's a weird thing to think about that most times I have read a lot of absurd stories and usually I'm just like, whatever. But it kind of like, I kind of just separate the absurdity between the two of the story that's being told as well as the actual craziness that is happening. But JoJo's as a whole has this habit of, mixing together and combining the absurdity into a good story, and it is fascinating. And as Araki has gone through the different parts, it has become more absurd, but that's the charm of it at this point. It is sort of like the crux of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So let me just get into the exact parts. So starting with part 1, it is the shortest part. Out of the volumes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it is only 3 of these. And it definitely is that part that's sort of like trying to figure out how it is going to go. And as a result, it's meh. It's still solid, but meh. And it has the inklings of that absurdity like I talked about. But then we get into part 2, in which part 2 has the, a little bit more absurdity, and it's a little bit longer, sitting at 4 of these volumes. Granted, I think that they're the volumes, they might be a little bit longer, volume-wise, of the original printing. I'm just talking about these, the hardcover. So, with part 2, it has that absurdity a little bit more. He is going in there and doing crazier things, but as a whole, it is still getting a little bit of that taste, a little bit of where this weirdness can go. And then, from part 2, we get to part 3. Part 3 introduces the new power, as part 1 and 2 had the Hamen, which is sort of like a breathing technique that sort of mimics the sun sort of deal, but part 3 is where he introduces stands, or Stand By Me, which is the major power that goes throughout the rest of the series, as it is way more complicated as well as way more interesting dynamic wise, and it adds even more absurdity. Granted, it felt like he didn't really understand the full parts that were going to be in there. So it becomes even better in part 4, where he understands that the weirdness is happening, but also knowing that you were going to be it's quite strange. And it fumbles a little bit at the beginning, but you definitely, by the end of it, the later half of part 4, you feel as that absurdity is starting to draw you in, and it has you hooked in the later half. And then finally, the part that I feel like most people truly say that JoJo's became incredible is part 5. And I've only read 1, but I read through it so much faster than the other parts because I was so interested in it. The absurdity is insane, and it's only the first volume because it's so crazy and interesting, and I love it. So let's get on to other aspects of JoJo's. So, like I said, different parts. You've been probably hearing that a little bit, and maybe you know about JoJo's, but if you don't, these parts, what am I talking about? So, JoJo's as a whole takes place in parts. I think as of right now there are 8, but only up to halfway through part 5 is being translated in English right now. So the different parts take place, over time. JoJo's follows the Joestar family, which is this regular Joe Schmo family, sort of, that was just like English aristocrats in part 1. And as it starts out, you follow the first Joestar that is, in this long line, Joseph Joestar, who, fights Dio. And he's a recurring villain. But the main thing is that with each new part in the series that shows up, you follow not the same Joestar, not the same JoJo. You follow the descendants of Jonathan, and part 2 is Joseph Joestar, who is the grandson of Joseph, which in turn means that 2 generations have passed, and it's further into the future, where, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that the first part 1 takes place in like the late 1890s, around there. Not 100% sure. It's before World War One. I know that much because Joseph right here is right before this takes place, before World War II, and it's weird and absurd. And then we get to part 3, which is the grandson of Joseph, Jotaro. And Jotaro is someone that doesn't take shit from anyone, and is also the fact that where the one major point is that because these are different people that are different from each of the following their ancestors or their grandfathers and such, you have different personalities, where Joseph is like bombastic and does crazy shit. Jonathan was like, I am a gentleman trying to be that, and Jotaro is sort of kind of like a school thug and all that crazy stuff. But it becomes even crazier that it sort of seems similar with Josuke. There we go. They all start sounding the same after a while. Josuke is sort of similar to a thug, but he is not like the kid of Jotaro. No, he's the bastard kid of Joseph because he slept around in Japan. Then it becomes a little bit weird and contentious, and certain characters do pop up that are a lot older, sometimes wiser, sometimes not. And then finally you get to Giorno Giovanni. There we go. who is, completely different than all the other Joestars. It becomes quite interesting to see the different, characters pop up because, one, the world as a whole is sort of similar to our world, but just has these people that can do weird magic powers and stuff, as well as vampires and ghosts. And I think aliens, it gets weird. It gets really weird, but that absurdity as the story goes on, as you see the different generations, becomes quite interesting, and you're just like, this is crazy, and you just get sucked in further and further, and that's where it comes so good. And like I said earlier when I was talking about the different parts, with JoJo's, I feel like the absurdity and really starting to draw you in, and the power system that develops is because here, Araki, there we go. Araki, in parts 1 and 2, and slightly a little bit in part 3, introduced the power of Hamen, which is sort of, like I said, a breathing technique that sort of allows people to mimic the, weirdness of the, solar frequency of the sun, which allows them to fight vampires. That being said, when part 3 came out, it kind of moved away from that. Even though Hamen is a pretty interesting power, it is quite limited in the fact that, sure, you can do weird things, you can extend your life and heal faster, but after a bit it kind of got boring. So you have this sort of stagnation, but when part 3 came out, he moved away from that to move to stands, which are the new power going forward. Stands as a whole allows him to do weirder, crazier shit that he wasn't able to do with Hamen. Sure, Hamen shows up very ever so slightly in part 3 and not really anything past that. It was just like maybe 1 or 2 fights in it, where stands are able to do crazy things because they are based off the personality of the different, users and the different people. So as a result, 2 characters might have similar stands, but they are very, very different. For instance, Josuke and Jotaro have similar stands in the fact that they are close range, but Jotaro's is Star Platinum. Star Platinum can, stop time for a few seconds and is very precise and can hit extremely hard, while Josuke's is... Shit, what was Josuke's? Oh man, I forgot his stand name. How dare I? I think it might be Diamonism. No. Where is it? Oh no. I forgot his stand name. I'm an idiot. Oh no. Do ba da 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 do 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 ba da da ba da 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 do 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 do. But his stand name, which I don't remember right now, I'm looking for it. He is able, the power of it is able to, heal and repair objects as well as people, which is completely different and pretty strong when you think about it. Where is the I don't remember, but it's pretty interesting because of the fact that you have these characters that have somewhat similar but different sort of, things that are somewhat similar but at the same time can be completely and utterly different. So you have this sometimes where Josuke is able to punch some people and then, whoop. There we go. Stand. Yeah, a name. God damn it. I thought I found it, but I didn't. Anyways, I forgot his name. I will put it in the thing. I don't feel like I keep on looking, but 2 very different things that sure are similar in some ways, but very different in the fact that one can just really move extremely fast and even stop time, while the other one can repair and heal anything. They have similar ranges, which in turn means that they have to figure out how to fight and do battle differently. While Jotaro is quite literally go straight in, Josuke has to figure out, because he can't heal himself with his stand, and he has to figure out weird and unique ways in which he can, utilize his abilities. And that's where it becomes interesting, because the absurd different powers that they are, you then have to switch them and figure out how to fight well with what you have. And it becomes crazy and nail-biting and exciting and suspenseful. So all in all, very, very interesting. And because of the powers being so weird and absurd based off who is, in this fight, you can have really weird outcomes that, are just strange and crazy. And that's what I think really starts drawing people in. So, with that all being said, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, all 5 parts that are out right now, are very solid, really good. They are somewhat expensive, being $19.99 each. So, take them, get it slow. You'll eventually get all of them. And I would say stick with, if you get past part 2 and get into part 3 and you're still not gelling with it, then I would say you are perfectly fine dropping it. Part 1 starts off a little slow, part 2 a little bit slower, and then part 3 starts truly ramping it up, and then part 4, the beginning of it, is again a little bit slow, but it ends quite well. And then part 5, he knew exactly what he was doing, how this story was going to craft, and it's really good, really solid, and I hope a lot of people like it. Of course, based off of the memes and all that, I think a lot of people do enjoy JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but yeah. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you all stay safe. If you like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, please think about hitting a like down below. The thumbs up, and also down below, if you like this bearded face, think about hitting subscribe, as well as put down in the comments, your favorite parts of JoJo. I'm interested to see what, the weirdness that you enjoy about JoJo's. Is it the power system? Is it the characters? Is it the world? I am interested. So, with that all being said, hopefully you all stay safe. Read some manga. It's cold outside, so stay inside. It's perfect for reading manga. And that's it. Bye.